Hello and welcome to the 538 Politics Podcast. I'm Galen Druk. The Inspector General's report on the FBI investigation of Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election is out. The review began in January of 2017, and after a year and a half, we have the results. I don't know that anyone is completely shocked by what's in the report, but it's definitely going to be used as a political tool, so we might as well dig into that. And here with me are Editor-in-Chief Nate Silver. Hey, Nate, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Galen?
You know, I'm doing pretty well. Read all 500 pages already. It's only been out for a couple hours, but, you know, speed reading. And joining us from D.C. is senior politics writer Perry Bacon Jr. Hey, Perry.
Hey, guys.
Did you manage to read all 500 pages by the time you got on with us?
I've read most of it, but I haven't finished all 500 pages.
What page are you on?
I've read about 200.
Okay, all right, 200.
I've also read the summary, and I've read some of the... I've skipped around some that I was writing about it, but I'm admitting that I have not read the entire report yet.
Okay, so given what you have read, what is your top line?
The top two lines are, overall, this is kind of what... If I had polled a bunch of legal experts about 2016 and the Hillary investigation, what I think they would have said was James Comey should not have made those public remarks in July or in October. He should have talked to top DOJ staff Loretta Lynch and Sally Yates more. He did not behave particularly well in that process, but the investigation itself concluded the right things, and namely that it didn't charge Hillary with any kind of crime. So I think overall that was not surprising. There were two elements that were surprising. One, that Comey appears to have had a personal email he was using himself while doing the investigation.
I think, is that what you call irony?
That was irony.
Don't you
think?
think?
Some of the text messages have come out have been interesting. We'll get into that, I'm sure, later on.
I mean, the general sense is that it's good that Comey put out his book before this report came out, because it's not very forgiving to his conduct in particular, or the Bureau's in general. I mean, Comey freelancing both with the October 28th letter, which, as we've written, very probably an event that was enough to cost Clinton the election, and kind of not going through reasonable protocols or usual protocols and procedures, and also not really like having a particularly good explanation as to why, except for, you know, I wanted to save my own reputation or my interpretation of the Bureau's reputation. But like, I think they called the actions like insubordinate in one case, but they also criticized lots of people. They criticized Loretta Lynch for both her tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton. Okay, maybe that happens, but then taking a really indecisive approach of what to do about it, right? Where she didn't recuse herself, but nor was she really like asserting herself and doing her job, so she doesn't come across looking well. These two agents who are texting back and forth, I think Trump will probably have a lot to say about that. It certainly sounds, it's limited, it's one message, but it's pretty explicit. What were the words exactly that were used?
I think it was that we will stop.
Is Trump really going to win? And it's like, no, he won't. We will stop it, or something like that.
Trump's not ever going to become president, right? Right? And then the other agent replies, no, he's not. We'll stop it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad if you're Trump. That's worth 8 or 10 tweets, I think.
I think more than that.
Probably more than that.
I mean, probably significant in this case is that one of those people messaging was then put on the Russia investigation. And whether or not that's significant in reality probably matters less for how Trump and other Republicans can use that for ammunition in attacking the Russia investigation, which is going to be a significant part of what comes out of this report. Right?
And one more thing on my list of like people who screwed up. The new emails that were discovered as part of the Wiener probe were apparently discovered, I think it said, on September 29th, and I've not read the report except in snippets and summaries. I'm going off summaries I'm reading, right? But in late September, these emails were discovered, and it was kind of like only in October that Comey said, oh, actually, so almost a full month later, oh my gosh, this new discovery came, we have to figure out what to do about it. So they were not very expedient about determining if those emails were germane to the case or not, and the whole thing might have been avoided if they had been quicker to determine that, hey, look, we've selected a large sample of these and they're emails we already have in our possession. So, I mean, the Bureau does not come across looking good. The Justice Department does not come across looking good. I mean, and everyone has like a little bit of meat to chew on, I suppose.
What are the political repercussions at this point of Comey looking bad, right? I mean, what's done is done in terms of the press conference, in terms of the letter, but he is a witness in Robert Mueller's Russia investigation.
I think Trump's defenders may say, hey, look, the IG report excoriated Comey's behavior. And by the way, he's kind of been self-serving and grandstanding the whole time. There's a little bit of that when his book came out, right? Like, look at how much of a grandstander, self-celebratory, self-congratulatory he is, right? And so, of course, Trump fired him. But that's not the reason why Trump fired him by Trump's own admission to Lester Holt. But it might make the act of firing Comey alone politically a little bit less damaging to Trump. That seems potentially relevant. You can also go the other way is like, okay, now Trump's going to go on this kind of, this email about we'll stop it or whatever. That's like, that's a good soundbite for Trump. And so one could also argue that that will make him bolder in ways of obstructing the investigation or pardoning people or firing people in ways that could be to his detriment in the long term. But it will give him ammunition to continue raising doubts. It also obviously gives people who don't like Comey or who thought he affected the election for Clinton, which we think the evidence says that he did, not on purpose, but like we think that was enough to alter the outcome of the election. That gives them ammunition too, but that debate's over. That debate has no consequence apart from the 13-part series you read about it on 538 or whatever, right? Whereas the rest of it is live. And so it's true that there is lots for both sides to like get angry and upset about, but like only one of them involves a still active debate, and it does give Trump some degree of firepower, which he may overuse.
So you'd say that all told, this probably benefits Republicans and people who are trying to diminish the Russia investigation. Perry, do you agree with that?
I guess on the Comey part, I would say, and this is in a legal sense, if Mueller or anybody else going to move forward on some kind of obstruction of justice charge against Trump on the idea that firing Mueller was some kind of violation of obstruction of justice, I don't think that Comey's comments himself are enough. The Lester Holt interview, other people that Mueller, I think, has talked to about the Comey firing are part of that as well. So I don't think Comey himself being less of a credible witness would matter that much. Also, the narrative that Comey told about his interaction with Trump and being fired by Trump has been sort of affirmed in a bunch of ways as well. The report, I would argue, suggests Comey is overly honest, is like in a certain way, and overly candid, which sort of goes with how he's acted in the 2017 as well. In terms of the politics, I would say the one thing I agree with what Nate said generally. I would say the report suggests the FBI is not overall corrupt or not. Trump has attacked the FBI in these very frontal terms throughout the last year and a half. And I think overall the report does say the FBI does not have political bias, which I think sort of rebuts a core charge. If they concluded that the FBI does have some anti-Trump bias beyond these texts, that would have been a big thing. So I think that's an important part of the report as well.
Ironically enough, the justification that the Trump originally laid out through Rosenstein for why he fired Comey is well supported by the IG report. But of course, Trump's subsequent admissions that it maybe did have to do with Russia contradict that original rationale. The original rationale was also a little cockamamie in the sense that so Trump fired Comey for mishandling the Clinton investigation in a way that probably worked to Clinton's detriment and probably got Trump elected. That was a weird, but I guess kind of intellectually coherent, if implausible, practically justification. But now, I don't know. But I'm sure he'll feel emboldened by it. I'm sure it'll escalate the rhetoric with Comey.
So beyond the trustworthiness of James Comey as a witness in the Mueller investigation, what about overall faith in the FBI? Do we see this generally affecting how Americans view the FBI? And could that in turn affect faith in the Mueller investigation writ large?
The obvious answer is that lots of stuff that the FBI has done over the past year, you would imagine has shaken public faith in the FBI's impartiality. The reality is that there are lots of people who are, I think, highly political or politicized within the FBI. Certainly if you looked at the course of the campaign and the Russia investigation and the way that investigation and the Clinton investigation for that matter, the media knew a lot about those investigations, and they probably knew them by partisan sources within the intelligence bureaus and the FBI and kind of people, I think it's probably the case that pro-Trump factions of the FBI were kind of leaking to the New York Times, for instance, and saying, hey, look, the Russia investigation's not really going anywhere, right? Because they kind of infamously poo-pooed it before the election took place. And I'm sure also that there are lots of Clinton partisans within the FBI. Probably most people that work for government probably are Democrats, maybe less than the FBI, the other agencies. But yeah, the notion of like an impartial FBI that Comey kind of claimed to be working so hard to protect. I mean, I think one of the kind of Greek tragic elements of Comey and the FBI in general, right, is that like in this attempt to make the FBI appear above board, he acted in ways that had a profound political impact that, although again, I think not his intention, did disproportionately hurt one of the candidates in a close election where, might have affected their result. But he did that in an attempt to like preserve this appearance of nonpartisanship. I find that ironic because I think a lot of the ways 2016 was covered by the media was also done in a way to preserve the media's appearance of nonpartisanship. That was part of why, like, the whole Clinton email scandal. I mean, well, now it turns out that Comey, of all people, also is using a Gmail account to conduct government business, apparently. And like everyone was. I mean, Trump is, or at least a lot of people in the White House is. I don't think Trump emails that much. But like, the fact that that was made such a big deal of was in part because the media wanted to show that they're not the liberal media, not the liberal New York Times or the liberal Washington Post, want to show how tough they can be on Democrats and how seriously they take these breaches of protocol for Hillary Clinton. And so gave that issue disproportionate amounts of coverage.
So I don't know the date in front of me. I think there's some evidence that from, say, November to today, that Republicans are more skeptical of the Mueller investigation, more skeptical of DOJ and FBI's objectivity. So if you think of the last sort of year of this campaign by, I'd say, the House Freedom Caucus, Devin Nunes, President Trump, the White House, to suggest the FBI is biased against Trump, to suggest it's not objective, to suggest this investigation is politicized, I think that campaign has worked in the sense that it's made Republicans much more skeptical as voters. And therefore, if you notice over these last few months, it went from, you used to have a class of Republicans, which was a pretty big group, which was basically if you asked Paul Ryan about Robert Mueller a few months ago, maybe in January, he would have said, let's let Mueller finish the investigation. Period. Paul Ryan and Republicans now say things like Mueller should finish, but I wish he would hurry up already, or we need to wrap it up. They're moving toward sort of Trumpian language on this. So if you think about this, and I do think this report itself, just in the sense that you have these text messages, you have questions about Comey. If the general mood in the Republican Party is kind of anti-FBI, anti this investigation, I think this report sort of reinforces that. And that is sort of helpful to Trump in a certain way. It's not going to change. I think the poll numbers show the vast majority of Americans want the Mueller probe to continue, and I think the poll numbers will continue to show that. But that's it. In this sort of base of the Republican Party, I think you'll see, you'll see very few Republican members of Congress defend Mueller in the future.
Yeah, so I actually have those numbers in front of me. So looking at the Politico Morning Consult poll of Robert Mueller's approval, last July 2017, just 27% of Republicans had an unfavorable view of Mueller. And I think yesterday, their new poll showed 53% of Republicans have an unfavorable impression of Mueller. So, I mean, it's been, I guess, almost a year. And then looking at the FBI, in general, it's kind of a weird picture because if you look from 2014 to 2017, which Gallup has been doing polling over the years, looking at American approval of different government agencies, it holds steady at 58% of Americans saying that the FBI is doing a good or excellent job, but it only holds steady because Democrats and Republicans have changed significantly how they view the FBI. So Republicans are down 13 points and Democrats are up 9 points. Do we feel like, in general, this report means both Democrats and Republicans are going to have less faith in the FBI? And also, is that new? I mean, the FBI being a political agency, that's like not new in American politics or history.
Yeah, I guess it is right. I was looking at those numbers too. I mean, it is a bit more polarized. The people who say either the FBI is doing a really poor job or an excellent job has increased, people in the middle has decreased, which probably means that some people who are Democrats think that the FBI is part of the resistance, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think Republican opinions will likely continue to decline and Democrats might hold steady-ish. I mean, the whole fact that, like, Comey became like a hero to Democrats after he, again, read the analysis on our website, 538.com, probably cost Clinton the election, at least had more to do with anyone other than Trump and Clinton herself, Trump himself and Clinton herself with the election result. We'll say that much at least, right? The fact that he became like some hero to the resistance despite being in various ways like kind of an unreliable narrator, I mean, that kind of showed the extent to which politics is partisan on both sides, and people are willing to be opportunistic about like who their friends and enemies are.
I mean, is there a point at which disapproval of Mueller gets high enough that it endangers the ultimate conclusions of his investigation?
I think there's a danger that like Republicans like Paul Ryan feel like they can tell Mueller, hey, wrap it up already, and that Trump feels emboldened to take those cues and fire him. Sure, yeah. You know, I mean, when the report comes out, I don't know, I think we're in a different stage of the game, and I think things could be different. You know, and I think if Trump actually were to fire Mueller, that like the opinion right now might not be very indicative of like where things end up, right? But like, you know, this is going to embolden the witch hunt talking point. And the 13 angry Democrats. These are all memorized, right? I don't have my computer in front of me for a change, but like thanks to the president's constant repetition on Twitter, you know, I have all these phrases memorized.
Wait, the 13 angry Democrats?
Yeah.
Who are the 13 angry Democrats?
I don't know what that means. He just says it all the time, and it has anything to do with like the Russia investigation.
Wait, Perry, do you know who the 13 angry Democrats are?
I do not.
But anyway, so Perry, Nate mentioned firing Mueller. Do you see Mueller as more endangered than perhaps previously?
This report was important because what it tells us about 2016. What happened in 2016 was really important in the Hillary probe. I don't think this report tells us much what happens in the future, because Mueller's going to keep investigating, and I think what Mueller's report says and what Mueller's indictments are will be important no matter what's in this report. Mueller is not listed. The agent's working now for Mueller. Like Mueller, since the agent who sent the text messages left the investigation, Mueller's indicted 20 people. So I just think his probe is pretty much, I mean, whatever Republican opinion is about Mueller, they would have attacked Mueller if this report was not released too. So I think that's a different factor. But I think in reality, Mueller's investigation is the game here, and that remains the same no matter what this report said.
Yeah, I'm not sure we disagree, except like, I don't know, it's really hard to figure out, is President Trump on the brink of firing Mueller? It's been reported that he's seriously considered it at points in the past. You know, we've also, again, kind of seen a pattern where Trump, as we talk about a lot, will kind of bluff at things and bark and not necessarily follow through. And so we'll see. But like, you know, I mean, we joke sometimes about like Smokey the Bear fire indicator, the fire Mueller indicator. And like, I think the fire Mueller danger is a little bit higher than it was this morning.
Yeah.
I agree. I think I agree with that. I mean, I still don't know how. I mean, this is something I've been reading from Nate. I've come to his view about this a little bit more. There's a lot of, the assumption has been in a lot of the press and a lot in D.C. where I am, is that if Trump fires Mueller, the Republicans will just sort of let it go. And Nate has been tweeting and saying, I don't want to speak for him, that we should not necessarily assume the comments of Paul Ryan pre-firing or the comments of Paul Ryan post-firing. But overall, we've had weeks of, he might fire Rosenstein, he might fire Sessions, he might fire Mueller. So he hasn't done that stuff yet, and I sort of, maybe he'll fire him before this podcast is over or before this podcast, but I sort of feel like it's a lot of bluffing, and I'll be curious, and I sort of still think that.
And you could argue that Trump has sort of handled the politics of this sort of, well, in a Machiavellian sense,
yes,
where opinion of Mueller is still okay, but has gone down. Opinion of Comey is not very good, right? And like the investigation, people are more skeptical about, and so like he's just kind of, maybe he can drag things to the point where like if his disapproval is 42-51 or whatever it is now, something like that, right? Maybe before long, 51% approve of Mueller and 42% don't, but it's like no better or worse for him than like the overall partisan numbers in the country. And so that's kind of a big success in some ways, right? To battle to like not quite a draw, but like, but almost a draw. But if you so why would you fire Mueller then? And the fact that you have like discredited this investigation enough and gotten your partisans, the 41 or 42% on board, you're limiting your upside. You're probably permanently injuring how popular you'll be at your maximum. But maybe his strategy has worked, and the strategy of threatening to fire Mueller is maybe part of the rhetorical excess of saying how serious it is, but actually doing it, I think, is a whole different ballgame.
All right. Well, I don't think that President Trump has specifically responded to this report yet. I know that he's tweeted since it came out, but it was not about the actual Inspector General's report. So we will see what happens. Maybe we'll be back in the Emergency Podcast studio tomorrow. But in the meantime, Perry, thanks so much for joining us from DC.
All right. Thanks, guys.
And Nate, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Galen Druk. Thank you for listening, and we will be back on Monday.